Hey guys, here another movie for you guys. Now this movie reviewing, this is a movie that is probably one of the most controversial and very, just a movie that's gotten a very bad rep, and it's a movie where a lot of people are going to ask me, why exactly did I see this movie? And I'm going to tell you why, but let me just say right off the bat, it is the reimagining, keep in mind reimagining, not remake, of The Birth of a Nation. Now, this is a movie that I went into very interested in, definitely. I went into, and I don't want to say I was interested because it kind of just sounds messed up. Oh, I was interested in a slave movie, but generally, yeah, I was interested in seeing how this movie was going to be. I mean, despite all the controversy it was getting, actually in spite of all the controversy it was getting, and how long this movie was taking, just what the movie's based on, because, yes, the movie is, you know, the same title as the movie from 1915, but it's not supposed to be a remake of that. What it's more supposed to be is a more accurate depiction of what was actually going on in the South at the times, whereas the 1915 movie is in fact a pro-KKK film. And that movie is terrible. I've seen many clips of it. It's so boring, it's so dated, and it's just so wrong, honestly. I don't know how, I get why a movie like that would be made then, but I don't get how audiences could stand something like that, because it's just so wrong with their logic. Everything about that movie, it's just wrong. I mean, if you've seen that movie, you know obviously it's wrong. That's one of the main reasons looking forward to this. That was definitely a selling point, but also the fact of what the movie was really trying to accomplish, I was definitely interested in seeing. And overall, as a movie, what did I think of Birth of a Nation? Because I am going to get to the controversy a little bit later, but what did I think of Birth of a Nation as a movie? As a movie, this is one amazing film. I mean, this movie is disturbing, it's haunting, it's downright horrifying, it's disgusting. I mean, there's so much to say about it. It's vile, and it's very, very accurately portrayed. A very faithful adaptation, I think, of really, well, not adaptation, but a very faithful depiction of really what went down in the South in that time period, and I think overall, just one of the best movies of the year I've seen so far, definitely. Is it perfect? No, I'll get into some of the problems, but overall, I really was affected by this movie. But let's get to the plot of Birth of a Nation. The plot of this movie, I really do love. I think the plot of the movie in general, this is probably one of my favorite plots of the year, to be honest with you guys. Basically, this movie is about, we focus on our main character, Nat Turner, who was in fact a real person, and he's someone who, unlike other slaves, as a child, he was actually taught to read so he could study the Bible and basically be a preacher to fellow slaves, you know, kind of be someone to talk to them when they're in a rut and preach to them and try to get them to feel better about themselves. That's what he starts to do, and, you know, basically, he starts to, you know, he does a lot of this preaching, but as the movie goes on, he starts to see a lot of unjust acts be committed. It starts to get worse and worse throughout the movie, and this gets him to kind of contemplate whether or not to revolt against the slave owners and maybe actually take action, and that's roughly the plot of Birth of a Nation. There's definitely more to the movie than that, but that's roughly what I'm going to say, because I don't want to say too much about this movie. But let's get to the cast overall, because I definitely need to talk about how great this cast is. So one of the things I was definitely interested in this movie is the cast, mainly because the cast in this movie, they're definitely big names, but they're not really one of those big names like, oh, that's a big name. That is someone that I've seen in a ton of movies. A lot of these actors I've seen before, but I haven't really seen them do anything that big, and I really do like that the movie did that. But let's first talk about Nate Parker, who there is so much controversy surrounding this guy. I mean, this is essentially Nate Parker's movie. It is. And not just because he's the main actor. He directed this movie. He did the writing. He did a lot of cinematography. He even took 7 years. This is insane. 7 years just to write this movie, and he used all of the earnings of other projects he did to finance this movie, which is just incredible and really does blow my mind. And as we know, there is a lot of controversy going on with Nate Parker. Now, while I don't like to get into controversy because I'm just not really a person who likes to talk about it, I don't really follow controversy that well. I don't like hearing about drama that goes on within movies. I like focusing on the overall product and not on, you know, something that's going on with an actor. I don't usually let that withhold my judgment, and I'm not, but I am going to talk about what's going on with him overall. Yes, it's very sick about what he's done in his past, and if it actually did happen, because I'm pretty sure it did. It's obviously very fucked up and very wrong, But either way, Nate Parker, the, person, I'm not going to let Nate Parker, the person, change my view of Nate Parker, the actor, because Nate Parker, the actor, really impressed me. This guy is incredible. I mean, I'm surprised I haven't seen him before, and I'm sure he's been a couple of things. He was in Non-Stop, and he was in Beyond the Lights, but this is his breakout performance. He was incredible in this movie. One of the best breakout performances I've seen all year. He just absolutely killed it as this character of Nat Turner, and it's mainly because how bad you feel for this character. This is someone who, like I said, he has been taught to preach to the slaves, and he keeps not exactly a positive attitude, but he's very restrained, and he's very calm, and he doesn't, try to let a lot of things get to him, but things just getting worse and worse in the movie, and the weight of the stuff that he gets involved in becomes, more and more, just more and more big throughout the movie, and the way the movie did that, though, was very interesting. But he, as an actor, absolutely slayed in this role. He was just incredible. You feel so bad for him because of what's going on, and when he eventually does make the choice he has to, you really do understand why he has to do that. There is one scene with him where he's sitting in a barn, and he's near this Bible. That scene is one of the most intense, complex scenes I've seen all year. He was just incredible in this movie. I love what he had to do here, and he definitely gave an Oscar-worthy performance. I'm worried he's not going to get one because of the controversy, but if the Academy can overlook it, he definitely deserves one. He absolutely killed it, and I definitely want to see him give a performance because he really was just incredible in this movie. One of the best performances I've seen all year by far, and I really love what he had to do here. However, everyone else in the movie I really thought was great, and Armie Hammer especially really surprised me in this movie because they did something with Armie Hammer that I think a lot of people might have a problem with initially, but I think worked very well in this movie. His character, Samuel Turner, feels very much like a character, and they did a really good job with that. What I mean by that is that he's billed as a second character for a reason. Yes, he is a slave owner, and yes, he is someone who he does whip slaves, and he does, in fact, make them pick cotton, but he's a good man, and you definitely do see that. He tries to do the right thing, and he tries to be someone who doesn't, who's a little bit easier on the slaves. But certain things just need to be done, and obviously I'm not condoning what he's doing, but you really do kind of understand why he is doing what he's doing. Why is he being on these slaves? Why is he acting this way? They did a really good job with that because, again, he's not really a bad guy. He's a good man overall. He's just kind of thrown to this situation where he really has no choice. I mean, at that time, if you followed any slaves, you really were you were ridiculed, you were tortured. I mean, a lot of shit could happen to you, and Samuel, in general, is someone who you definitely can tell didn't want to abuse the slaves, but he really had no other result but that, and I think he did a really great job with this character. I really love what he had to do here, and same with Mark Boone Jr. This is someone who's one of Nat Turner's closest allies, and you definitely see that here. He's actually the reverend, of the church and everything. I thought their scenes overall were very well done. There is this one scene with him in the middle of the movie, and it is really sad, definitely very tragic what happened. I think they did a really good job with that. Colman Domingo as well, I really love what I've seen of him in Fear the Walking Dead, and his character here, you really do see him and Nat's relationship. It's one of the key points in the movie, and I think they did a really great job with that relationship overall. Aja Naomi King, if it had not been for one scene in this movie toward the end, she wouldn't have left much of an impression on me, but the scene that she left an impression on me, damn did she leave an impression on me. She really was incredible in this movie, to the point where I honestly feel she deserves a Best Supporting Actress nomination, because she was incredible, and I really love what she had to do here. And then the only other person I'm going to talk about is Jackie Earle Haley, as this character, Raymond Cobb. You want to talk about brutal slave owners? This is the guy to think about. I mean, this guy seems to have no limits whatsoever. He outright tortures the slaves. He thinks of them as property. I mean, he is about as, realistic as one can get. And he is extremely inhumane. And I really love the battle between him and Nat, because it is a straight-up battle between these two. And these two opposing forces is one of the driving forces of the movie. And I think they handled him so well. I really love what he had to do here. Jackie Earle Haley just does a really great job playing crazy characters, and this one is no exception, and I really love what he had to do here. I thought he was fantastic, and Definitely one of the best villain forms I've seen all year. Damn right chilling, damn right terrifying, and knowing people like that were actually out there makes this even more scary. Overall, one of the best casts I've seen all year. Definitely many of them deserve Oscars. Any of the ones I mentioned deserve Oscars, may I just say, and definitely one of the high points in the movie by far is the cast. Now, the cast was, like I said, this really is Nate Parker's film. Everything on this film is really relying on him. The fact that he took 7 years out of his time on this movie and everything he did with it. I mean, this movie went through production hell, and the fact he was able to make it, I think alone is enough for reason to applaud. But what I even have to applaud more is his directing this movie, because it is absolutely spot on. I really love the tone of this movie. This is a movie that doesn't try to sugarcoat anything. It gets down to the nitty-gritty of what went down more than ever. I mean, this movie is dark, it's brutal, it's depressing, and if the trailers made you think this movie was inspiring, that it is, but it is not at all a hopeful film. I mean, this movie is sad, it is brutal, you're gonna walk out of it feeling like shit. I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not trying to, you know, sound depressing or anything, but that really is the truth. I walked out of this movie, and I really felt very impacted by it, and I really do applaud Nate Parker for doing that, because a lot of people were thinking this was going to be a pro-black film. That's not at all what this is. What Nate Parker's trying to do is tell the realistic story. I thought the tone was perfectly executed. He got that down so well, and definitely some of the most well-realized directing I've seen this year. The screenplay really did have a hard job to do, though, because Nat Turner in general, now we're going to get to the other controversy with Nat Turner, is Nat Turner as a person in general, because Nat Turner is someone who nowadays isn't really looked at as a heroic figure, and I don't really think the movie necessarily portrays him as one. They portray him more as a man who is very upset by the inhumane acts going on, yet Nat Turner in general did commit a lot of inhumane acts, because yes, in this movie, they do eventually revolt, and there is a slave rebellion, but they didn't just kill men. They did, in fact, kill women and children, and I don't know for what reasons or how it happened. Again, I don't really know the history of what went on there, but I guess that he ended up killing dozens of women and children, and people really look at him as a savage, just really vile figure, and I really think they did a good job of justifying his reasoning. Now, the movie doesn't really try to tell you what happened there, and I personally think that that's fine, because the movie's not really about that. It's not about him going around killing women and children. It's about him being thrown into a situation that he doesn't really know what to do. I mean, again, this is a character that is very reserved and very, well, at least in the movie, very reserved and very positive. I don't know if it was accurately portrayed. I really don't care, though. I've told you guys before, I don't care if a movie accurately portrays something. I care that the movie does it well done, and they really had this so well done. I mean, the movie in general is not really about slavery. It's more about inhumanity and just really cruel acts to humans, and really just how you treat human overall, and really just human decency. I mean, that's really what Nat Turner wants. He wants human decency. He wants some sort of compassion, and he's not really getting that. I mean, he sees the stuff that's going on in this movie. People are being tortured. People are being raped. I mean, it's really, really bad stuff, and it gets worse and worse throughout the movie, and I think he did that so well here. I really was so into the story of what was going on, just the weight of everything. You really do feel it. I mean, you feel like you're right there with the slaves when all this stuff is happening to them, and even if it's someone you don't know, you very much feel affected by that. I mean, there is this one scene toward the end of the movie where this little boy, and we barely know anything about his character, but just because of what happens in that scene, it's so brutal what's going on there. And oh my god, the last 10 minutes of this movie have to be some of the most brutal, honest, and just damn right tragic endings I've seen in a very long time. And a lot of people have compared it to the ending of Braveheart, and I honestly feel it's a very fair comparison. If you know the way that movie ends, Birth of a Nation ends very similarly. The difference is that I think Braveheart, I do believe William Wallace was a real person, but it's a very different situation in Braveheart than Birth of a Nation, and just knowing everything that went down, it's very sad to see. I think they portrayed it very well, though, and they did a very good job with not glorifying anything that's going on. The movie's not trying to justify anything. It's telling you exactly what happened, and I really do appreciate the movie for doing that. I think the screenplay was just incredible, so well done, and I think they just handled it really, really well. The cinematography in this movie is damn near perfection. I mean, there is this there's this constant blue throughout the movie. I think it just adds to the depressing nature of it all. And again, you really do feel like you're right there with the slaves and that you're trapped with them and that you're seeing these events. I mean, there are things in this movie. This is one of those movies where you watch it and you feel like you shouldn't be seeing it. And I think they did a really great job with doing that, because that a lot of times can get kind of tedious and can get kind of like shock value, but that's not at all what this movie is. What this movie does do very well is it makes you feel like, you know, this actually happened, and holy shit, I'm actually watching slaves get tortured. I mean, things that you didn't want to see, you do see, and I'm talking about it's way worse than just seeing people's backs. Like, there's a lot of stuff in this movie I can't believe they actually got away with, and they did that so well. I thought the cinematography was so well handled here. It's so brutal. Again, it doesn't hold back, and I really did love the way the cinematography turned out overall. Really great turnout there. This movie is, I think, one of the best I've heard all year, without a doubt. I mean, this is definitely in my top 10 scores of the year. Henry Jackman just put so much pathos and emphasis into the score in this movie. This is one of those scores where you hear it and you really do feel something. I can't exactly hum it for you, but it's just so powerful, and in the moment, the scores add so much to the movie, and they did such a great job with that. I really did love the score overall. And then the editing here. Here comes my only problem with the movie, is the editing. Now, I'm not going to say this movie is choppily edited, because it's definitely not choppy per se, but it is, in fact, I think some scenes went on a little bit too short. Particularly in the first two acts. I think there definitely were some scenes that could have gone a little bit longer, because the third act by far is the best part of the movie. I mean, that's when shit gets real, that's when things really go down, and they don't hold back, and I really was impressed with the movie by doing that. But the first act in particular, I really did like the first act of this movie, but there are a lot of choppy edited scenes, particularly the first scene in general. I don't really know what it was trying to show exactly, but I thought they handled that I thought that really was not handled as well as it should be. I think the editing points definitely did come across as very choppy, but that's really the only flaw I have. Besides that, I really do love this movie. This is by far one of my favorite movies of the year so far. So overall, guys, Birth of a Nation is a very harrowing, brutal film that is definitely not for the faint of heart, but it's just as inspiring as it is horrifying, and I am definitely going to, and besides that one flaw, I am definitely going to give Birth of a Nation a 4.5 out of 5 or an A. This movie greatly affected me. I walked out of it feeling just horrible for these slaves. I mean, if you thought 12 Years a Slave is bad, this movie, I haven't seen 12 Years a Slave, but this movie already, I can tell, is just so much more brutal, really gets into what happened, especially when you find out what happened. I think they did that so well. It's also one of those movies where you look at the cards at the end of like what happened to everyone. Some of the most brutal stuff I've heard, definitely, but just a very, very realistic account of what happened, a very deep look into what happened. It's a movie that truly will make you feel something, something you'll just feel terrible for what happened, but it also gives you all this inspiring stuff, and it's a very, it's just a very inspiring film, and definitely one of my favorite films of the year. Not for everyone, but if you can handle it, I definitely recommend seeing it, because it truly is something impactful, and definitely something that really has potential to win Oscars. I'm worried that's not going to, because of the controversy. But if the film, if the Academy can overlook the controversy, definitely expect this film to get a lot of Oscars, come Oscar season. But overall, guys, my Birth of a Nation. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie overall. If you guys have any controversy for this review, I'm sorry if you guys are upset that I watched this movie. Again, I like to go into movies and not let the controversy, withhold my, my opinion of what I have to say of the film, because I didn't let that happen. I watched it as a movie, and I encourage you guys to do the same. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which will be for Luke Cage, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.